3 from Penn State. He died tragically in an accident about 5 years ago. He was always a proponent of getting the department together with AccuWeather and the National Weather Service and doing these joint kinds of things. And so it's an honor to deliver this briefing with his name in his honor. It's my understanding that we are christening a new projector today, so I have twice the lumens that all previous presenters have had. I don't know if I can deliver twice the content, but let's try. So CliMo for today is 67/48. We've of course been nowhere near that the last few days. We're in a time of the year when climatology is dropping off very quickly. A month from now, we'll be at 5739 here in State College. Just for perspective, the sun gets as high in the sky on September 28th as it does on March 15th. And typically when you think of March 15th, you're coming out of winter, the sun doesn't get that high in the sky anymore. And you can really notice the days are getting shorter. We are losing daylight right now at about 19 minutes per week, which is the fastest at any time of the year. It's always, of course, around the equinox. So the month so far has certainly been a tale of two weather patterns. First 2 weeks, way below average, kind of rainy. And since then, way above average. Last measurable precip here was the 16th, I believe. Here's a courtesy of Steve Seaman from Weather World, or maybe it was Ben, I don't know. Ultimately, the data comes from Midwest Regional Climate Center. That's the first 13 days of September. On the left, the temperature departure from average. And we're approximately 6 on the cold side. And then the right-hand side is since September 14th. We're right about 9 degrees above average. This rain-free streak is pretty impressive, actually. I went back to 2014 and I asked what have been the longest stretches with no precipitation since the beginning of 2014. And there was a 14-day stretch in September of 2014 that ended on the 30th of September. If it doesn't rain here tomorrow, and I kind of think it will, I think we'll get measurable. If it doesn't rain here tomorrow, it's not going to rain Saturday, I don't think, or Sunday, or Monday, or Tuesday. So it would be quite an impressive streak if we were to not rain here tomorrow. But you can see that over the last, going back 3 3/4 years, the current streak of 12 days with no precipitation does stand out. I've been struck by the fog recently, so Steve Seaman, who just knows how to mine the internet for the greatest available graphics that you can find to get a sense of climatology, he created this graphic for me. All you need to know is time of the year goes from left to right, time of the day starting at midnight on the bottom to the end of the day goes from bottom to top. Basically, you count the number of times fog was reported at the University Park Airport since 1980, and you plot it as a function of day of the year, time of the day. And the yellow here is the highest frequency, and it occurs pretty much in the 2nd or 3rd week of September. So the fact that it's been foggy is not unusual for this time of year, climatologically speaking. It's actually been foggier than even average. This compares 2017 in red to the average number of days when fog is reported. And the average would be between 8 and 9, and there's already been 14 days when FG was reported at UNV. So if you feel like it's been foggy in the mornings, foggier than average for this time of year, which is the foggiest time of the year on average, you're right. Not so sure there'll be much fog as we've evacuated a lot of the moisture, a lot of the low-level moisture from the air. So forecasts, here are the highlights. So after I show this, we can all quit. I'll show now. So it'll feel more like autumn through the weekend. There is a reinforcing shot of cooler air coming in Friday night. I think Saturday might not get out of the 50s. You know, if you're in the sun, of course, it'll feel better. But the official high on Saturday could struggle to reach 60. This disturbance that will swing through will primarily threaten northern Pennsylvania with precipitation tomorrow and tomorrow night. I think behind it, Saturday night, we could see the first frost of the season, parts of the Alleghenies and north central Pennsylvania. Sunday and Monday to me just looked spectacular. Literally one of those, maybe not a cloud in the sky, fingers crossed. It's always easy to make clouds here. But just brilliantly blue skies those days. And then there are signs that unseasonable warmth will return later next week, though it does not look nearly as anomalous as the amazing stretch we just went through, with days with maximum highs 20 degrees above average. Just a remarkable stretch. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the internet. So, in a nutshell, that is September from the standpoint of the National Weather Service. It is a month when generally, if you just accumulate the possible advisories and hazard notifications that could be in effect, September is a month that's usually pretty calm. If the tropics aren't active, there's not usually much in the way of severe weather. The low levels tend to be cooling down. The upper levels still remember the warmth of summer. And that is a stable configuration. So if you were challenged with finding a month when the National Weather Service would issue the least number of advisories nationally. I mean, I've not done the statistics. I'm sure Dave has done the statistics, but September would be near the top of my list when it comes to relatively calm weather. There's yesterday's highs and lows, courtesy of the Penn State E-Wall. I'll be honest with you, I did not check to see how many of those highs were records. I suspect several of them were record highs. You've already seen what Climo is right now. Upper 60s here, upper 40s for the low temperature. So quite a spectacular stretch. Of course, you don't need me to tell you that we've cooled down a bit. So here's your 24-hour temperature change. On the order of 15 degrees cooler now in State College than it was this time yesterday. Some pretty remarkable 24-hour temperature changes to our west and northwest, where it's actually kind of cloudy now, so the clouds are helping to hold down the temperatures. But you can already see a bit of a warm-up behind that. Interestingly enough, where we are now, these are the departures from average of the current temperature versus what would be climatologically average at this time of day on this day. And so we've nearly gone back to average. This is just average for this time of day, for this time of year. I'm kind of starting to like this now that we have wind particles on Weather World. So this is your, I'm going to call those wind particles because that's what WSI calls them, for lack of another name. So what do we have here? This is the surface. Temperature is colorized, Maria and Lee. Maria, of course, scooting away from the mainland, and I don't think Lee's a threat even to Bermuda, right? Not even a threat to Bermuda. I hope you can see yeah, it looks pretty good. We're now in a northwest flow, and we'll be in a northwest flow all day today. You can kind of see the outlines of a bubble of high pressure here centered over the Midwest. Northwesterly winds on its eastern flank, switching to westerly and southwesterly on its western flank. And then if you look a little bit farther north and west, there is some sign of counterclockwise flow up in here associated with a surface low that's sort of, I don't know, clipperish coming out of central Canada. It wouldn't be an Alberta clipper, it might be a Manitoba mauler or a Saskatchewan screamer. But this is a disturbance. It won't be very low pressure at the surface. Let's go up to 500 millibars, and you can kind of see the associated 500 millibar. A little harder to see the underlying maps here, the underlying geographic. But that kink right there in the 500 millibar flow is a potent little disturbance in the northwest flow that will swing through here during the day tomorrow and tomorrow night. Now, earlier in the week, the models were suggesting that that disturbance could slow down and maybe muck up Saturday a little bit. It now looks like it will be progressive enough that it will be through here by Saturday, and all it would really do is reinforce the chill for Saturday. There's the beautiful, this comes from SSEC Wisconsin, kind of this hybrid visible infrared image. There's Maria, which, if you're not aware of what this did to Puerto Rico, you really need to educate yourself. That island is in bad shape, really bad shape. There's Lee. And you can kind of see, even in the clouds, a bit of a twirl here in south central Canada associated with that next disturbance. It's very well represented in the vorticity field. It's a pretty potent little shortwave in the vorticity. Here's the Penn State E-wall, the purely infrared image. Not sure there's much new information here. You can barely see. I mean, it's hard to believe a front went through here, bringing in the northwesterly winds, cooler air, much drier air. I got to believe that although you could see at the beginning of the loop, you could kind of see the front, some compensating subsidence perhaps on the outer fringes of Maria just basically destroyed the clouds as this, plus of course the northwest flow will downslope out of the Appalachians. But there's really not much left in cloudiness from the front that went here through here yesterday. And then sort of the bubble of high pressure in here, and then the next disturbance. It's really moving. I mean, it's flying. I just love looking at the new GOES 16. It's good to get used to the kinds of resolution you get, some of the mountain wave clouds, and then some of the clouds undoubtedly being induced by colder air moving over the relatively warm waters of the Great Lakes. We're going to have to start using the lake effect adjective in front of the words rain or snow sooner than you know. And there's the national radar image from our friends at WSI who supply us with the data that powers much of what we show on the E-wall and what we show on Weather World. Not much going on until you can begin to see that the first signs of that disturbance. This is probably warm advection precipitation here associated with the warm air returning ahead of that disturbance. So I thought I would take us through the next couple of days using the GEFS. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, that's the global ensemble forecast system. Contains approximately 20 different runs of the GFS with slightly different initial conditions. And what I'm going to show you is the average of those 20 runs. The quantities that are plotted here are sea level pressure, the solid thin lines, and the wind barbs are on there. They're kind of small, but you might be able to get a sense of them. And then, or actually that's 850 millibar wind, so you're about 1,500 meters above sea level. and then what is called precipitable water, which is basically if you could condense all the water out of a column of air so that it formed a puddle on the ground, how deep would that puddle be? And it's in millimeters, which is not really relevant for our discussion. For the purposes of our discussion, the really juicy air capable of producing significant precipitation is really in the blues and the greens here. The browns, for all intents and purposes, represent relatively scanty atmospheric moisture from which you're not going to be able to squeeze much. So this is valid at 18Z today. We note Maria. And this closed isobar right there is the surface reflection of the low pressure system being powered by that potent disturbance that's swinging out of Canada. So if we go forward in time, let's go ahead in increments of 6 hours. Here comes that little disturbance. Somehow the website has decided to put an L in there. I don't know if you have to have two closed contours to get the L designation or not, but it's done it. And you can actually see sort of an uptick in the precipitable water. It's not as brown as the low passes over the Great Lakes. So you got to believe it's being enabled a little bit by the relatively warm lake water. And that low is progged by the GEFS to go through New York State. We're at 0Z Saturday now. And by the time you get to 12Z Saturday, what's left of it is offshore. Precipitable waters here have come way down. So there will be a Clipper-like, relatively weak low pressure system going through here tomorrow, passing to our north. If we go up to 500 millibars, we can see what that looks like. This is the chart for 12Z Saturday. We can just go back a little bit. So that's a fairly potent vortex, but it's working on scanty moisture. So to me, when I see a vorticity maximum like that, I bet you tomorrow there will be a couple, late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, some lightning strikes north of here with a vortmax like that. Not a lot of precip, but pretty good vertical motion. And speaking of vertical motion, I always like to show this chart. Some of you have done quasi-geostrophic theory already, others will do it soon. But quasi-geostrophic theory in 15 seconds boils down to two important processes that can make air go up. The advection of warm air and upper level divergence, in a nutshell. So there's a gentleman, and I'm sure there are other people doing this, but the one I'm most familiar with at the University of Arizona, who is solving the so-called quasi-geostrophic equation and giving us a sense of vertical motions due to those two processes on the synoptic scale. So this is not mesoscale, but it's big scale, sinking or rising motions. And in the color scheme here, sinking motions on the synoptic scale at 700 millibars. So you're measuring the vertical velocity up around 3,000 meters above sea level. Sinking motions are in blue and purple. Rising motions are in the yellow and the brown. Okay, so this is valid at 18Z today. And we can see a pocket of rising motions. We're now tonight. This is 6Z tomorrow. Right there, that brown represents a pocket of, so on the synoptic scale, upward vertical motion about 3,000 meters above sea level. And that pocket of pretty vigorous upward motion passes through New York State, glancing northern Pennsylvania, later tomorrow afternoon into early tomorrow night, to be replaced by 18Z Saturday by large, significant sinking motion at 3,000 meters. Now that doesn't mean you can't have clouds below that, perhaps generated by heating of the ground, and then you get some cumulus that maybe flatten out. But the synoptic scales by Saturday are favorable for sinking air, big time. So how much precip in State College? These are the plumes suggesting that the likelihood of getting some precipitation here ramps up later tomorrow afternoon, lasting into the evening. Not all of the ensemble members from the SREF, which has about 20 members, think we're going to get precipitation. There are a number of members that don't think we get any. If you switch on over to the GEFS, it's a jumble of garbage, but you can see that some of the members certainly take an uptick up. The amounts are limited, less than a tenth if you believe GEFS. The average here is, the mean on the SREF is 0.08. So I do think we probably get some sort of a shower here tomorrow. With the low-level air so dry, who knows how much of it reaches the ground. But my guess would be we get measurable precipitation here tomorrow and break the streak of dry days, ending it at what will probably be 13. That would be my guess. Now, beyond that, the National Weather Service 7-day QPF shows us entering again into a very dry period. So I believe the green that you're seeing here in Pennsylvania is from tomorrow. You can kind of see the gradient as you go north, the precipitation becomes a little bit larger. That's what tomorrow's precipitation gradient will look like. So that's tomorrow. It's tomorrow or bust. If we do not get some measurable tomorrow, we could add another 6 days to the dry streak, which then you start talking about short-term droughts or flash droughts or whatever you want to call them. We could use the rain. Let's put it that way. Although if you're going to have one of these dry periods, this is probably as good a time as any to have. So it's 12:55. I guess the last thing I wanted to do is maybe show the European, the EPS, the European ensemble, and take a look at 850 millibar temperature anomalies out into the distant future. So let's go to, that makes it easy, 850 millibar temperature anomalies. So this is the European model ensemble forecast. Okie doke. So this was valid at 0Z Thursday, so we're a little bit behind. Let's catch up to real time. So this is, we only get this output every 24 hours, but that's good enough. So this is the 850 millibar temperature anomaly as of 8 p.m. tonight, here, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And there's 8 p.m. Friday. And here comes that reinforcing cool shot for Saturday. And there is 8 p.m. Sunday, so we're transitioning. And 8 p.m. Monday, you can already see the warmth building to our west. And 8 p.m. Tuesday Eastern time, a huge anomaly to our north. And when you think about, this is an ensemble mean. This is an ensemble, I hope I got the right thing here. This is an ensemble, EPS, yeah. This is an ensemble mean. And this is in degrees Celsius. This is the average over 50 different ensemble numbers. And that is a significant anomaly to our north. This has got to be record, near record temperatures again in Ontario and Quebec, you would think, if this signal verifies. And there's Wednesday evening, Thursday evening, Friday evening, and even Saturday evening. What you see is this consistent message to keep the warmth in the east. Yeah, there might be some cold frontal thing that goes through later next week and takes an edge off of it, but there's a strong suggestion, and if I could just switch this over to the GEFS, I think it will update to the same parameter at the same time. So that's what the GEFS thinks. Now, you're 234 hours out here. You are next Saturday evening here. So I think there's a very strong signal there for a return to unusually warm weather in the long term after this short-term blip. So unlike September, which started really chilly, and we had to dig our way out of a hole, which I think we've almost done, if not completely dug our way out. Have we done it?
Yeah.
We're back to even?
We're above.
We're above now. September will started cool, ended warm. October looks like it begins quite warm, which is perfectly fine with me. So, does anybody have any thoughts or observations? So Saturday here, temperatures in the 50s most of the day. During the game in the 50s, maybe touch 60. Clouds probably in the morning. It could even be overcast as that wave departs. And you get some northwest flow, so there's probably some strato Q, but that synoptic scale sinking probably squishes them, so maybe end up with some pancake cumulus late in the day, but it doesn't seem like a bad day to me. No precip. The wind didn't look particularly strong. There'll be a northwest wind, maybe even a northwest wind. Not a bad day. Good day for football. Yes, sir.
The Doppler radars that the weather service has built to take winds up to 134 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So that's how strong that is.
Yeah, if you haven't seen pictures of the Puerto Rico, the San Juan radar, you need to Google it. I've only seen, maybe Dave, you know, I've only seen one other occasion of a Doppler radar being ruined by the wind. That was a microburst ruined the El Paso Doppler radar in 2001, I think. I have a picture of it. Looks like somebody took a big fist and punched it. Are you aware of any other Dopplers that have been?
WAAY, Huntsville, Alabama.
Had
a tornado hit. They tracked it and then.
Did it really?
Yes.
So it destroyed it.
Got
I'd love to see that picture of what it looked like.
I can ask Brad if he has it.
So you're aware of a third one?
Yes, but that's a private enterprise, not NWS.
Oh, so that was not the national weather.
Station.
Oh, we're only counting National Weather Service radar. We're not talking private companies. We don't know their specs or. So that's interesting.
Guam, I think.
Guam is taken.
Yeah, with typhoon, the same week with Andrew.
Really?
Yeah.
In '92, destroyed the Guam radar.
I believe that.
My recollection is that when they were built, they were about $2.5 million a piece. So I don't know what it costs now, because I mean, as they rebuild it, you had the dual polarization upgrade, which was a couple $100,000, right? So I presume all of the radars had been upgraded to dual pol, including the San Juan radar. Some of the images that it showed, though, did you see the wobble in the eye as that? If you've not seen that, you have to watch my WeatherWise piece from yesterday. Because the eye wall did a weird thing as it went by St. Croix.
Yeah, I have a good question. One thing that might be happening in the southeast next in the short mid-range, there's
that tropical thing down there.
Are you thinking that that will be more tropical in nature? It looks like it might be frontal almost.
I'll be perfectly honest. I did look carefully at it.
Yeah,
it's the one thing that did strike me from the synoptic scales perspective is as that big high builds into our area, you know, rising pressures up here probably mean falling pressures down here. So, but I didn't follow that. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to just look and see what one of the models does with it.
Gives it about a 20%
20% chance of.
It looks like it'll be a cold core system that may migrate to a warm.
I think they raised the chance up to 40, I think, now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be a good temperature
It would be neat.
across the space.
You know what, when we got Lee this year, you know, my first thought was, that name should have been retired. You remember Lee in 2011?
Oh, yeah.
What it did to Pennsylvania? Is anybody here from the Northeast Pennsylvania? Remember that was the year the Bloomsburg Fair got canceled? First time in its history, because the Susquehanna flooded. They should have retired that name. I don't know what they were thinking. Anyway, just a random. Yeah, so there we go. This is This is 200, oh, wait a minute, let's go back.
Oh, that's the next one.
That's the next one.
That's GFS Day 10 hurricane.
Okay, so here's your GFS day 2, day 3 disturbance, cold core, that would get the name Nate if it happened to be warm core. And so that kind of hangs out. Its ability to come north strongly hindered by the 500 millibar ridginess in the northeast. And then I shouldn't have done that. Sorry. Anyway, is there anything else I should show, or you just want to leave? Because it's 1:04. Yes, sir.
I think when the bridge work, use the pattern, I think it's busted off long ways to go.
Long way. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna bring up the state. We'll end with the State College predicted sounding from the most recent run of the GFS, late in the day on Saturday. So that is your predicted sounding in State College. Very dry aloft, 0Z, so we should go back 6 hours. So there's your 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Dry adiabatic in the boundary layer, 61 at the surface for what that's worth. Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, some of our guests, Joe Murgo from Channel 10 and Paul Knight, former state climatologist and meteorologist extraordinaire, now retired. Dave Martin from the National Weather Service. Is there anybody else here who's a guest? Is that Art sitting on the couch? Who's on the edge of the couch? That's Art, so he's not a guest. Not so